Talking back tonight, let's take a look at some of the stories that probably aren't being reported on in great depth by the mainstream media here in Australia. With Talking Back Tonight regular Nathan Bray. Hello.
Hey, Christian. Hello, everybody.
Let's start with this one. Terror plots foiled by the FBI turn out, apparently, to be planned, funded and weaponised by the FBI.
That's right. This has been going on for a few years. We've covered it, but it just continues. You've now got this rogue wing of the FBI, and it appears to be involved in little more than foiling its own terror plot, then claiming credit for stopping terrorists in the USA. I mean, they've got budgets to justify and KPIs to hit like everyone else. But, there are Americans who appreciate the FBI's efforts that are focused on halting actual criminal activity across the United States. The agency seems to have completely lost its marbles when it comes to pursuing its own domestic terrorists. So we've got another story, another bombshell story from the Kansas City Star, which details another bizarre story about the FBI stopping its own terrorist plot. So the story describes how FBI agents, they troll Facebook, they're looking for Islamic terror-sounding people, then they recruit them into these elaborate plots while providing detailed plans. They then supply them and give them money and allow them to carry out these plans. So basically what they're suggesting is that without the FBI encouraging these people to take part in their terror plots, they might have simply remained sort of angry Facebook conspiracy theorists, maybe dweebs, or, seriously, because Christians, some of these terrorists appear to be flat out working out which shoe to take off next. So now we've got some facts here.
Yes. Oh, we do.
As far as
good.
Terrorism, I've always had facts.
Yes.
With terrorism investigations recently in Wichita at Fort Riley, and of course last week in Kansas City, the alleged terrorists reportedly were unknowingly following the directions of undercover FBI agents who supplied, get this, fake bombs and came up with all the elements of the plans. So this Michael German, now he was a fellow at the Brennan Center for Justice and a former FBI agent himself, and he said there is clear effort to manufacture plots.
Wow.
So the statistics are, out of 126 Islamic State-related cases that are prosecuted by the federal authorities across the country since 2014, get this, nearly two-thirds involved undercover agents or informants, and that was according to the Center on National Security, and this is at the Fordham University School of Law in New York.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are asking the question, that are they catching real terrorists, or are they just tricking troubled individuals into volunteering for a long prison sentence? Now, I find this a frightening piece of a crazy puzzle, because you've got the FBI is manufacturing terror plots. Then you've got the then you've got the CNN creates fear by acting like the threats are real when they are, as Trump says, just fake news. And of course, this allows, as we talked about last week, the CIA to justify spending taxpayer money on spying on us all through our smart TV, taking away our freedoms, which, let's face it, that's what we're supposed to be spreading overseas to start with. And then finally, you've got the NYPD gushing about how many terror-related arrests they're making and giving out medals of bravery to cops who are surrounded by fake bombs and FBI agents.
Yeah.
I've got to ask the question, is anything real anymore, Christian?
Well, look, I think if the FBI are looking for integrity and authenticity, they've just got to look to the example of their Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump, for the answer. For some inspiration, Nathan.
Definitely.
Now,
and we've got some Donald Trump coming next.
Yes, stand by for that. Here's an interesting one. It's official. Americans are paying for Trump's wall, not once, but twice. The Mexicans aren't forking out a cent for this, Nathan.
That's right. In fact, Ron Paul is saying, and remember, Ron Paul Institute, his son is a congressman, Rand Paul.
Rand Paul.
And of course,
was Rand Paul the one that spoke in Congress for 24 days straight?
Yeah, the filibuster.
Yes.
That's right.
In fact, he's still talking, I believe.
He's still practicing anyway.
Yeah.
They were actually shocked when he got up last time to vote and he didn't say anything.
It's been for 5 seconds.
Something wrong with him. That's right. So Donald Trump says that we're going to build a big, beautiful wall and Mexico is going to pay for it. So this was one of Donald Trump's sort of campaign mantras. However, as Americans who don't have political short-term memory loss will remember, politicians, they make a lot of promises, but once they're elected, not so much. So this is the case with Trump's promise to make Mexico pay for the Great Wall. So again, let's look at the facts. the reality is Americans will be paying for it, not Mexico. And Trump's newly released White House budget has made it official. So the Trump budget blueprint, it was released last Wednesday, and it calls for taxpayers to fund a $4.1 billion through to 2018 for Trump's wall along the southern border of the United States. But that's just the initial construction. The Department of Homeland Security, right?
Yeah.
They're saying the overall cost to taxpayers will be over $21 billion.
Wow.
And let's face it, the government's making it. They don't make anything on time, and they're always over budget, and it never works as well as the free market. So it could be anything.
Yeah.
But wait, Christian,
there's more. There's more.
Okay.
Yes.
So because Mexico has made it abundantly clear that it doesn't want to pay for America's Great Wall, Trump has floated this idea of slapping a 20% tariff on all goods imported from Mexico to make up the cost. So this idea might sound legitimate if you disregard the laws of economics, but the reality is that Americans will wind up paying for the tariffs through higher food, higher consumer prices, as was reported by Anti-Media last January. And don't forget, Christian, if food prices go up, then inflation goes up.
Yep.
And we just had an increase in our interest rates in the US because inflation was going up. This is a knock-on effect that might bring that Great Wall down.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a great idea from Donald Trump so far. Also, secret Russian weapon that could wipe out New York City, Boston and Washington, D.C. in minutes. Tell us about this one.
Yes, Christian. Now, look, the facts aren't all out. We don't know if this is just a planted story, controlled opposition. But according to high-level Russian sources with ties to the military, and look, the names have actually been named in a US podcast recently. Russia not only possesses a devastating secret weapon against the United States, they've apparently already placed it off the East Coast shoreline. So the existence of this secret weapon, which could unleash a massive, get this radioactive tidal wave that devastates cities along the East Coast, would make a great movie. And it's actually already been reported a couple of times in the BBC. So what was happening is Putin was having this nice meeting with his generals, and of course all the media were there, and they saw this general actually reading the plans. So, and one general was studying this diagram of a devastating torpedo system. Now the weapon, it's known as a nuclear mole, and it's an underwater drone that carries a nuclear warhead that burrows into the seabed floor off the coast of the target country, or the USA. And then once it's buried in the seafloor, these nuclear weapons can be remotely detonated to cause a massive tidal wave that would wipe out all the coastal cities in a minute. And not only that, it's actually a dirty bomb as well. So you wouldn't be able to use the infrastructure or the military areas for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So this has excited conspiracy theorists who suggest that bombs were placed in fault lines near Japan to set off Fukushima. But of course, this wasn't done by the Russians. This was a secret New World Order attack. So we'll have to wait for this story, I think, to develop over the next few weeks.
And finally, Nathan, US ally used $3 million Patriot missile to down a $200 drone. It seems like money well spent.
Oh, well, Christian, you can just see insane John McCain rubbing his big white fat hands together because he represents the military-industrial complex. So what you had is one of the major US allies. They had this drone, this $200 drone that kids could have put into the air and bought off Amazon.com, and of course it required a $3 million Patriot missile to take this thing down. And this General David Perkins, he told the Association of the United States Army's Global Force Symposium in Huntsville, Alabama, that the strike was made by a very, very close ally, but it was a bit frightened, I think, to say who. And it was a very close ally. He says it was a very close ally of ours dealing with the adversary that was actually a small quadcopter UASES, and they shot it down with a Patriot missile, he said, stopping short of actually naming the company in question, Christian. So the military-industrial complex won, the taxpayers of one of our allies zero. It's a very frightening thought to see how much wasted money happens in the military over things that aren't really necessary at all.
Nathan Bray, thanks, and we'll catch up again same time next week.
Cheers, everybody.